This regular meeting of the Village of Tinley Parks Plan Commission to order and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Stanton. Engel.
Here.
Manny.
Here.
Gatto.
Here.
Gray.
Here.
Aitchison.
Here.
Augustiniak.
Present.
Vic.
Here.
Chairman Shaw.
Here. Okay, we have a good-sized quorum this evening. Thank you, everyone, for being here and for staying late, and I apologize to the petitioners for the late start, so we'll just kind of roll right into it. Do we have any communications from staff? Nope. Okay. Good. All right, and we have approval of the minutes. Our last meeting, we did not have a quorum, so we actually have to go all the way back to October 18th and December 6th, the approval of the minutes. For that, I'm just going to do them one at a time here. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the October 18th, 2018 regular meeting?
So moved.
Moved, I didn't hear where that came from. Moved Commissioner Engel, second.
Second.
Second Commissioner Gatto. Okay, any questions, comments, or corrections on the minutes from October 18th? Okay, or discussion. All right. Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes from the October 18th, 2018 regular meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Minutes are approved. Same thing for December 6th, 2018 regular meeting. Motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Move Commissioner Engel, second.
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 Vic.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, Commissioner Beck. Any questions, comments, or corrections on those? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes from the December 6, 2018 regular meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Moving right along. We have two items on the agenda this evening. Both of them are public hearings. We have a, let's see, did we actually open this hearing?
We couldn't.
Okay, so technically we have, you renoticed it, right?
We didn't need to renotice it.
Oh, okay.
It was just, when you'd be opening it.
Yes, so we're, procedurally, we're opening it for the first time. All right. So first item on here is a public hearing for Jimmy John's, 7228 West 191st Street. Blake Bernal on behalf of C82 Commercial LLC for a special use permit and a substantial deviation from the Brookside Marketplace planned unit development. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Move Commissioner Augustiniak, second.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Aitchison. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Do we have anybody here that is going to speak on this? That would be the petitioner and also anybody from the public. Are you interested in speaking on this today?
I haven't signed yet.
Okay. If you think you might, to be safe, I'd ask that we swear you in. Okay? All right. So anyone who thinks they might speak, just raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to give today is the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you stand up. You could have done that from the seat. We're going to have the staff report.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, I apologize for that. So as we're moving forward, I would just like to say I did take a look at the public notices, and they have been properly noticed according to state law and village ordinance. So with that, we can move directly on to the staff presentation.
Yeah, so this is a combined workshop and public hearing. As you said last time, we didn't have a quorum, so the petitioner did get some feedback, but it wasn't a formal meeting. There was no votes taken, so this will, in agreement with the chairman, we made this a combined workshop and public hearing for this, so. The petitioner is Blake Bernal. It's C82 commercial. They're seeking a special use for a substantial deviation. This is in the Brookside Marketplace planned unit development in the shopping center. Again, the substantial deviation and site plan approval. That's for it's for a 940 square foot building addition, facade changes, and then to permit a third drive-through restaurant in the PUD. The addition of a third drive-through restaurant in Brookside Marketplace isn't expected to decrease the overall quality of the restaurant retail properties. And then this is expected to kind of be an adaptive reuse of a bank of a previous Bank of America building that's been vacant. So their goal is to convert that Bank of America building into a retail building. The primary tenant that they've kind of identified is Jimmy John's, and then there'll be an additional commercial space, which at this point they don't have a tenant for, but they've got some ideas of who would go in there. So the existing site, again, this is located in Brookside Marketplace. That's kind of got Target, Best Buy, Dick's, Kohl's, some other places in there, as well as restaurants like TGI Fridays, Taco Bell's in there. So the majority of the shopping center was constructed 2004 to 2010. The most recent buildings are the Panera Bread building, and then there's a Pier 1 Imports building that's kind of an outlet building similar to this, but a little bit bigger. Those were constructed in 2015. So that is the existing site on the slide, back when it was Bank of America, with the 3 drive-through facilities on the left or south side of this property. Here's kind of a bad picture of the original architectural approvals. So this is in the B3 PD zoning district, which is the general business commercial, and it's in the Brookside Marketplace PUD. The land surrounding Brookside Marketplace is primarily undeveloped land. So to the east is owned B3, which is primarily empty fields over there. To the south is a mix of R4 and B3 zoning, and then some unincorporated property. And then to the west is ORI, which is Panduit and the old Greystone Golf Course properties. So the majority of this is expected, well, it's vacant now, is expected to develop commercial entertainment type uses. So Brookside Marketplace itself has had a number of new buildings, additions, facade changes, kind of since its original development. Most of these kind of kept true to its original vision of kind of a high-quality design, uniform buildings, prairie-style, brick, high-quality materials. So there has been some changes out there, but most of them have stuck true to that. The original PUD that was approved out there also limited the overall shopping center to 2 drive-through restaurants, and I think that was to try and get some high-quality sit-down restaurants, kind of limit not have Taco Bell, Burger King, all the kind of fast food drive-through restaurants in a row out there. They wanted this to be a little bit more of a entertainment type shopping center where you could spend the day shopping and go sit down at a restaurant or go somewhere else. So right now they do have, that was only allowed to increase if they did increase the standalone standalone restaurants beyond 3, so they were allowed to do more than 2 drive-throughs if they got more than 3. Sit-down restaurants, right now, they have 2 fast food restaurants with a drive-through, which is Arby's and Taco Bell, and then 3 standalone sit-down restaurants, which are TGI Fridays, Hot and Juicy Crab, which is now open, and then Panera Bread, which does have a drive-through. However, it's considered by the definitions in the PUD as a standalone sit-down restaurant, and it's just allowed to have an ancillary drive-through on it. So that's kind of the request for the 3rd drive-through in this. So the special use for substantial deviation, again, is for the building addition, the facade changes, and then that 3rd drive-through. The 940 square foot additions in addition to the existing 4,600 square foot building. So it'll be a total of 5,540 square feet. I believe in your staff report, it referenced removal of 3 parking spaces, so they did revise the plans after I wrote the staff report, and it ends up not being a reduction in 3 parking spaces. So if you guys saw that in your staff report, it'll be a wash. They were able to add them in the front, and I can get to that a little bit more in the parking section. So the first open items, just to discuss the substantial deviation and the change to the PUD. We had a little bit of discussion at the last meeting. There wasn't too many concerns about the substantial deviation request itself. And it's kind of believed that this type of restaurant and this type of use would be economically beneficial compared to another bank reusing that property, or something else that could go in there. So the proposed uses in this, again, a Jimmy John's sandwich shop with a drive-through is expected to use approximately 1,600 square feet of floor space. Jimmy John's has a fairly limited menu of sandwiches. They have pretty fast service as well, so it's a little bit different than your typical McDonald's or Taco Bell. They have a little bit more limited menu and a lot less reliance on drive-through. The drive-through concept's also relatively new for Jimmy John's, but it's been successful at their other locations just to drive some people that are looking for a little bit more convenience or quick service than having delivery. The remaining 3,900 square feet on this space is expected to be one single tenant space. They don't have a specific tenant, again, in line with that, but they have looked at maybe like a personal fitness or cycling or something along those lines that could work in there. However, it could be anything that's kind of allowed by the B3 zoning district. So in terms of parking and the site layout, we just kind of looked at that as kind of like any shopping centers. Don't really know what's going to be in that space, so we take a little bit more generic view than just what they're proposing or what they think is possible. So the second open item is to include a condition that any outdoor dining needs to receive a permanent approval prior to installation. So they did note that they're not planning on that right now. However, with a lot of restaurant uses, they typically tend to creep in after the fact. It is possible out on the site, they just need to receive approval. So they submitted a letter saying they're not going to do it, but seeing that it could be useful for them in the future, we wanted to make sure that was covered. So this is the interior layout there. On the left is the Jimmy John's with the drive-through lane, and then on the right is that extra tenant space that's yet to be determined. So the site plan, the goal of this was to kind of, especially with the addition of a drive-through lane on this site, was to make traffic circulation around this site not seem so awkward. It's an awkward shaped site. It's kind of a pie-shaped triangle. So even the original design wasn't the best, didn't have the best layout, but for kind of a low traffic use like a bank, There wasn't any major issues. However, with adding a drive-through, we really wanted to make sure this worked correctly. So the original meeting where we came here, they had kept the kind of second exit on the west side of the property. At the top of this picture, they had a second entrance there. So kind of with some of the discussion that happened at that meeting and then some of our working with the petitioner afterwards, we were able to make it just be kind of a one-way circulation around that site with only a one-way entrance and then a two-way exit on the back side of the property. So they are proposing to close that, and then again, one-way circulation. That there is kind of an issue of the parking lot being there and maybe someone going the wrong way down the one-way side of this building. There will be signage and striping that's out there, and then we did kind of look into, there was an idea of adding parking spaces along the drive aisle, and could that kind of, one, add parking to the site, and then two, prevent people from going the wrong way down the one-way drive aisle. There's not enough room, just the needed clearances for a fire engine to get through there. Doesn't leave enough room for us to get parking in there as well. So they just kind of hashed it out. We'll have striping that shows one way. We'll have signage that shows one way. So that we think we kind of worked through those at the kind of top of this site or to the west at the entrance to kind of limit any type of traffic conflicts, though, by eliminating one of those entrances. Parking wise, so they supplied a traffic parking report from Kimley Horn. This kind of runs down to 37 parking spaces total that they need, so 12 for Jimmy John's and then 25 for kind of that undefined, just generic retail commercial space. So that they need 37, they have 37 on the site. Typically, we'd be a little concerned that that's pretty tight. There is a kind of overall master shopping center agreement out here, though, that allows cross-parking easements across these properties. It's kind of envisioned when the shopping center was originally kind of master planned that there'd be some parking sharing out there. There's obviously a big parking field with all of Target, Kohl's, all kind of the big box stores that are out there. So just to avoid more and more asphalt going down, they made that a point. It's also in the urban overlay district, which also kind of promotes that in terms of cross parking wherever possible. So while they're kind of uptight against that, we think if there is any kind of overflow on this site, it can kind of be absorbed by that overall parking field that's out there. In terms of removing that second exit, they did remove 3 parking spaces that were in the back of the building, but they were able to find space up in the front with the islands to squeeze in 3 additional spaces that meet our code requirements for width and depth. So they were able to find space for those 3. It just took relocating, I believe, a tree and a couple light poles. So we end up with the same amount of parking that's out there now will be on this site. Then we have the drive-through lane. So there's vehicle. Sorry, I think I forgot one of the open items. One of the open items was the. So yeah, that was the revised plan open item. Since we got those revised plans in prior to this meeting, we should be all good with that. These are the plans that are up here, showing one that there was still notes for the 5 parallel parking spaces on the plans, and then also the additional parking added in the front of the building. And then the drive-through lane, in terms of that Kimley Horde parking analysis too, they had 6 average-sized vehicles were kind of the spacing that was allowed. in the stacking line. That's also the maximum number that they counted at their 3 locations that they looked at. So they looked at, for the parking and the drive-through, Wheaton, Bolingbrook, and Plainfield, which were all kind of nearby, had a drive-through similar size to this location. So 6 was kind of the maximum they found during their peak times, which is kind of their lunch hours, which 11 to 1 is when they did the counts. So this will be able to handle those anticipated drive-through vehicles kind of at their peak times. The kind of one concern that we have is that this kind of being that multi-tenant commercial property, that there could be a tenant here in the future, or even if Jimmy John's decides to kind of discontinue their drive-through service, that you could have a tenant in here that doesn't use the drive-through. So we did recommend a condition that they add that they do need to go through site plan review approval if someone goes in there and doesn't use the drive-through. There's also another condition on this, that if their demand changes, or another tenant does go in there and uses the drive-through, that they need to provide a new stacking and parking analysis, just so we can make sure that, if Dunkin' Donuts goes in there, it's not going to be enough stacking for them, and you could have some traffic concerns in the shopping center as a whole. So those are just kind of in there to make sure that anyone that goes in the space in the future, they can actually function correctly. And then if they don't use the drive-through, that drive-through, they find some other means. Either they take it down, take it off, build another addition on it in that space. There's a few possibilities, but they'll be able to come back. So there's quite a bit of additional landscaping in this, especially with closing off that drive aisle. They almost make a little park on the west side of the property. So they did, I think, a pretty good job making that look kind of unique and not just planting grass. So they put some different shrubs in there, some different landscaping, gave it some kind of curving edges. There's also additional landscaping with the islands being added in the front of the building. So there'll be more landscaping kind of everywhere where they're adding curbing, and then they are primarily sticking with that original 2006 plan. We'll do a little bit of a check to make sure that anything missing or dead on the site is brought back to that original 2006 plan as well. They are adding a sidewalk. Originally, it was just going to be on the southwest corner of the property. They were going to run it kind of just to the edge of the drive aisle. They were able to adjust the island radius kind of in the front of this. That was originally set back a little bit, and that was kind of due to, again, the fire engine turning radius. But since they were able to kind of realign the drive aisle, they were able to make those turning templates work, and were able to push that curb out. So now they have a sidewalk running all the way through this property and not just on that south side. So I think this was in the original plan, but then they came up, they kind of had these issues as well when they actually tried to build it, of how could a fire engine actually circulate this site. So I think that was their quick route to make everyone happy. This actually, I think, makes that entrance a lot nicer, a lot better, and you get the sidewalk actually going through the site now. So the architecture hasn't changed from the last meeting. It's similar to what's there now. With the building addition they're doing, they're just kind of carrying along what's already out there with the bank. And again, that architecture kind of blends in with that surrounding architecture of Brookside Marketplace. They kind of have that architectural feature in the front of the building, as well as those kind of natural tones, brick and stone. Signage, they are proposing a ground sign. Pretty basic, but it's kind of similar to what's out there now in terms of Arby's, TGI Fridays, Taco Bell. I think they all have kind of that similar, just brick-based sign with tenant panels on top of it. So they're going with that. They're kind of proposed some protruding letters on this sign. They can do that. They can also do a flat panel if they wanted to, based on the PUD signage standards, but they would just have to be consistent. So they'll end up having to be a consistent background color and then a consistent type or style of signage. In terms of the rest of the signage on the site, the wall signage, directional signage, menu board signage, we did kind of get the Jimmy John's generic sign package, but it wasn't really site specific. It didn't really have the dimensions we need. So it looks like a lot of it can work, but it'll kind of all be still based on, they'll have to meet the PUD standards, which everyone else has met out there. So maybe they'll have to adjust something, but they should be able to meet those, seeing as Panera, Taco Bell, and Arby's all have drive-throughs, kind of have directional signage, and they were able to meet it. So I haven't heard any concerns from them that they're worried they're not gonna get the signage they need out there. So, and again, all this will be determined. They'll have to get separate permits, separate approvals for those signs, and just meet the code. So that's kind of the last open item, is that just reiterating that the signage wasn't fully submitted for this site, and that they'll have to come back and get separate permits for those. I believe that's all I have for my staff report. You guys
Okay,
want to go
great.
through your site?
So rather than go down the commission, the petitioners here, would you like to add to that? Do you have some of your own information to provide, or
No,
we
not
can
really.
head right into it? So I would just like to say I appreciate you once again being patient with the delay this evening, as well as last meeting where we didn't have a quorum.
Okay. Yeah, we were basically, I know the last time I was here, it wasn't an official meeting, but I did take the comments from the 4 that were in attendance. And we reworked the back side of the building, and I do feel like it's a little bit of a park now with the 3, but I think it's going to control a lot of the parking concerns around the building. We did add back the 3 spots to the front. We had went through the exercise of trying to do it on the side and worked with the fire department, and this is what we've come up with as far as the solution for getting the truck around. So we added the 3 extra spots to the front, and unfortunately we'll have to relocate the parking lot lights and I think 2 trees, but it is what it is. So and that's all I really have.
Great. Well, I appreciate it. I'm going to guess when we go down the commission, there's hopefully some questions or comments. So we'll start on this side all the way down at the end. Commissioner Gatto?
I don't have anything.
All right.
None for me.
Commissioner Engel? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
None for
You
me.
good? Commissioner Manning?
Yeah, I just had a couple comments. The overall plan, I think it looks good, way better than it was. But I think I see too, things that concern me are more like safety. I know right now when you have the drive, you come in, you come down, and then you just have that striping there, right? But then still cars could go, somehow I'm imagining, sometimes like myself, I'm looking for parking, I'm not really paying attention, there could be something, like an accident happening, so, but I'm thinking, how can you really deter that? Maybe we could, instead of having striping, maybe add a speed table? I don't know, something.
Do you mean between the drive-through and the
Yeah,
pass-through?
right where that, like, or wherever, kind of like where we have that striping, an angle or something. I know, then I think about snow removal too, but still, I still kind of see something that could become an issue, just accident related. And I mean, that's my one comment. And my second comment is also to, involving, someone getting hurt at the entry. Can you flip maybe to we have that 3D shot? of the current, I think the opposite end, yeah, that one. Like right there, like if you had some, I'm looking at it as like if a child's coming across, and I'm thinking, could we add maybe like some type of guardrail, not all the way, but something to help catch a child that's running, because a car's gonna just immediately come out of that space, out of the drive-through, right? I mean that's what that I think, how I see this plan, that could be something that can mitigate someone getting hurt.
Could I ask, just to make sure we're talking about the same thing? In that view, are you talking about the crosswalk?
That diagonal. That's I'm saying. More of a speed table where people see it, and then you have to slow it down to good over. So that'll make you stop. That'll make the two people, or that'll make the drive out to whoever wants to go in and eat. Make them slow down, and then also as well as someone that's in a driveway. Come out and they'll see the speed table, they'll have to slow down, right? But then that's one. But then the other portion I'm talking about is where we could add some type of rail, not all the way, just something, if a kid was around that corner, and just to avoid, anybody getting hurt.
You're talking between like the sidewalk and then where the
like the
cars are
sidewalk,
going.
right.
Yeah, we can look at some kind of.
Because that's what I just see. Because
fencing
I could just see, kids,
or something there.
Yeah, because McDonald's has it over by the Jewel. You know how they have that
Yeah.
parking lot on the
Right.
side now, and the drive-through. How we expanded the drive-through there.
Mhm.
There's something there, so
Right.
people can't just come.
Just to-
So you
right
can't
in
step
front of-
right around the
Yes.
corner?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
I
I mean,
understand
that's what I see. Something like, oh my God, that's as a parent, I see that for my kids. Like,
Yeah.
slow down. But it's just again, but overall, I think the plan is like way better than for the vehicular traffic.
Yeah, we can look and see if there's something kind of right before that entrance.
Yeah,
that we can do to do
whatever,
it.
that would
But
work.
in
But
terms
then you
of
still
the
have the
speed
open
table
space.
or something, I'm not
Yeah, I don't
so
know,
sure
just
of that.
something, again, it's something just to control someone that they have to slow down. Because if
Yeah,
they're
I
not,
know plows
anybody
say
coming
them.
to eat, they're gonna go, hey, we gotta get something quick to eat, and
Yeah, I know
and then
plows say
another
them.
car's
I know our
coming, and they're not
or-
paying attention, because at least that's what I think I'm gonna try to think of the worst case scenario.
Yeah, we
know.
we can look at it. I know plowing hates them, emergency vehicles hate them, even
Well, right,
cars,
I mean, exactly,
suspections
but
do.
then,
They're usually not the best situation, but we can look and see what else we can
Right,
do
I don't know,
there.
I'm just trying to think, even if it's something, yeah, I mean.
Yeah, that was
those are
kind
my
of our main
comments, so,
focus in terms of signage and striping, so we'll continue to look at that.
Right. But definitely that guardrail, I think that's really then crucial versus the speed table suggestion.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Okay, starting right here, Commissioner Beck.
I've got nothing.
All right, Bill. Commissioner Atchison.
I just want to say that I like this plan much better than the plan we saw last time, and I appreciate the way you took care of the traffic concerns in Adams Park.
Thank you.
I would echo those sentiments. I think they've made reasonable compromises to the things that we discussed in our unofficial meeting last month. And I don't have anything in addition to that.
Great. Commissioner Gray?
Yes, I have a couple things, but I too want to echo what's been said. The plan looks really good, and I appreciate all of, what Jimmy Johns did to work with the village. Just to go back to what Commissioner Manny said, I absolutely agree. There could be a potential safety issue, because not only do you have one blind spot, it's a double blind spot. It's made for a bank, but you have on that original slide you guys showed the person in the drive-thru and the person to the south of the drive-thru. So whatever alternatives you guys need to look at, I'm not suggesting necessarily a speed bump, but I agree with not only just kids running out of Jimmy John's, but you got a lot of distracted customers looking at their cell phone, and unfortunately you have some distracted drivers looking on their cell phone when they shouldn't. So something that could at least minimize the potential for any sort of pedestrian accident would be good. And then second, I couldn't tell from the plan, but the lane on the west, is that still the 26-foot, 8 some odd inches? Is there plans other than looking at the map? That's just that's not landscaping. That's just like painted asphalt on the very south, between the landscaping and the asphalt?
Correct, yeah, that's just hash striping, just to kind of prevent it from looking like a two-way drive aisle.
Right.
And then it'll help the fire truck and
Yeah,
still
'cause
Right.
move freely.
Yeah, I understand the navigability issue, but I
'Cause
also agree with...
even the 20 feet, if so you could curb maybe some of that, it would kind of be awkward to get it to kind of blend back in, but you could maybe curb 3 feet of that, but then you'd still have a 20-foot wide access, which
Right.
still looks like a two-way
Okay.
access.
I agree with Commissioner Manny. Again, you're going to have somebody kind of looking for the parking spot and then just go down the wrong way just because he can still drive on painted asphalt. But I understand there's some constraints with the fire truck, turning radius and whatnot. But those are my two concerns, that's all.
Yeah, and we've definitely, it's been the challenge, I think, since we first started talking about this, and then when we came back here too, it's tough because you're working in if this was a brand new site, you could shift the building or shift the curbs and stuff. So it's just we've tried to do, I think, the best ideas that we could come up with. But I agree. there's
Overall,
still
it looks
some
very, very
concerns
good. I appreciate, Emily, I
Oh,
appreciate
thank you.
all the efforts you've gone to get it to this stage.
So for my part, I hesitate to simply echo what a lot of people have said in the interest of time for the meeting, but I think it's worth saying that I also, I really appreciate the significant difference in the flow from the last version that we saw. And it's very clear that although there's some elements of it here that are, still of concern, I could tell just by looking at it that you guys went through a lot of effort working with the fire department and just trying a lot of different options. So what I would say is I really like that you did bump out towards the ring road and accommodated a sidewalk. So it was one of the points that I had. I had a question about that. It's not shown in any of the renderings or even on the site plan here, but would that be striped, the crosswalk? And is
The
it
stripe light, this crosswalk across it.
And
yeah,
also-
typically that's what we require.
right? So that's a requirement as well as if it's new.
I don't know if
ADA.
normally we make them do it when it's new, but I think most of the ones out there are missing. But yes,
Okay.
that would be a requirement. That they
Like I've
stripe.
said before, we if we don't start, we'll never finish.
Yeah.
Right. So even though it's acknowledged that it's there's gaps in there, it's still good. So I just had a couple of specific questions about the flow, specifically of the sidewalks. But in mentioning those, I just want to acknowledge how much better this is, and how nice it is. Right. So this is good. The sidewalk on the ring road there, and then the sidewalks around the building, at least from what I'm seeing on the renderings and the drawing, they don't appear to connect at all. So someone coming down, and I realize the nature of the shopping center, there's not a lot of foot traffic, but there are a lot of employees there, and having worked in retail years ago, a lot of folks, who work in all the various stores, walk out to some of the other stores for lunch or what have you. So there will be foot traffic. Am I reading that wrong, or do they not connect?
Correct. Yeah, they don't connect right now.
Okay.
Just since they didn't before, and there was no kind of easy path for them to connect. I think the ones that they filled in were just kind of filling in with what exists there now and not
Okay.
ripping them out. But correct, they don't connect there.
All right, so I would just say for my part, I wouldn't condition my recommendation for approval on them connecting, but I would highly recommend it. I think it would be good, because we're essentially, you're accommodating and putting a sidewalk on the ring road, but it doesn't go anywhere. At least if it led to the restaurant, there'd be kind of some value in putting in that little chunk there. True. Right? So again, just to clarify, I'm personally not going to condition my approval on that being in there, but if it could be accommodated, that would be good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the developer, but we have a lot of landscaping, and the sidewalk would be financially better for his construction budget than all of the landscaping and that, so,
Yeah.
I'll get back
Okay.
with him.
Well, that's probably a good thing then, so.
Yeah, we could, maybe on the north kind of side of this, you could connect them, since that's the sidewalk that loops around the site, then maybe you could kind of angle that back, so we may be able to get that connected.
So I don't want to speak for the entire commission. Any objections to that thought?
I think it's a good idea. I think
Okay.
it's really good. It makes sense from just, if you got people walking there, why are you going to have them walk, into traffic? Keep them on the side of the sidewalk. So I think, as you mentioned, Dan, just angle that one on that far north, and you can make it parallel to that line. So, yeah, I think that's a very good idea.
Can you go back to that three-quarter rendering that you had? There you go, right there. All right, so this one right here has already been mentioned. I agree that whatever the device is, something that does not block the sight line at the edge of the sidewalk to the building, that kind of forces a pedestrian to step a few feet away from the building, give them a better chance of being seen. But now that they brought that up, I didn't see that when I first went through the plan. But conceptually, somebody coming around the other side, the pass-through, not only is it potentially a double blind, as Commissioner Gray said, but now that I'm thinking about it, you have somebody leaving the drive-through and somebody coming around this way, people like to cut corners, right? So there's potentially a problem there. I don't necessarily have a recommendation for a good solution. If from the planning department or somebody else, there is potentially one, like right where the do not enter sign is. I don't know what the device would be, some sort of control that would kind of guide them, or.
I would just a concrete curb and kind of barrier between the two. McDonald's does drive-through lanes all the time with concrete. I don't think you need to make the pavement concrete, but you can put a raised curb that on both sides of that little south edge of the drive-through, and
Maybe a guide or indicator.
runs for 10 feet or something and pinches out.
Yeah.
That way you stay in your lane.
So, again, for purposes of clarity, that's a recommendation, not something that I would condition a recommendation for approval on. Last thing, this crosswalk, in looking at the site plan, for the most part, it seems there to accommodate employees who are going to be taking things out to the dumpster. But where you see where it hits the curb, it runs into a bush.
Yeah, right.
So it kind of doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, the original thought was, I think, to connect that out to the dumpster, but I think that could actually, besides having fences, that could probably become more landscaping, which I'm sure the developer will love. And then, it's probably safer to just have the person bringing the trash kind of go, they can go down the ADA ramps and just kind of bring it out through the parking lot. I think that's probably safer than them bringing it out past that drive-through.
Okay, yeah, however
so that could
works.
be potentially just be converted back to landscaping there, as long as they have a way to bring it back.
And I think in the series of just comments, it was more of, I think we put a solid line there at first, like do not cross
Yeah.
for the people, and then it was like, well, let's stripe it. I do hear your concerns, but it was kind of put there more to stop people from coming in the other direction. What methods do you stop them?
Oh, you mean,
know.
it's
it's not-
geared more towards the vehicles as a visual
Correct.
barrier.
It's not a sidewalk.
crosswalk.
But I do see where that's confusing.
Yeah, it
But
looks
when
like a
you're,
crosswalk to me. so.
but when you're driving a car the other way, I think you need something more than just a sign to tell you don't. And if they see it, maybe they won't cross it. You know, I don't know what's the best solution there, but.
And maybe we
Okay.
can talk with Kimley Horn or something to see, because there is just standard traffic control practices in terms of what a crosswalk diagonal stop bars are, and then maybe they have some kind of do not enter type of a thing. Maybe it goes the other way too, and kind of does cross hatching. But I know there's some standard kind of striping traffic control stuff that
Okay.
Public Works might know, or Kimley Horn may know.
Well,
I mean,
that's,
if anything, we could, if it were to stay like it's drawn in the rendering, we don't have to put all of those trees. I mean, if we're relocating you have to get a crane out there for the parking lot lights, and it's kind of dangerous relocating a tree that big in size anyway. If everybody supports that another one's added at the back side of the building, we could just create some kind of walkway through a landscape area.
Yeah, I'm still thinking that, I mean, you may just be able to landscape that whole, bring it all the way to the building, because then that prevents the, a sidewalk going straight into the drive-through lane.
Oh, I see
That
what
would
you're
actually
saying.
become more landscaping right there, so it wouldn't go all the way to the drive-through lane. And
Yeah,
then
'cause
your garbage
that's the
guy's
thing.
just gonna go out the front.
that sidewalk doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
no parking.
Yeah,
over
that
there.
doesn't connect anything. The original thought was that sidewalk would just extend up to there, just so someone could bring the garbage out. But yeah, that could just become landscaping there.
Okay. All right. That's all I had. There's a couple of refinements that I think could potentially improve some things, but again, I think those are improvements, not a full stop for me. Okay, any other questions or comments for either staff or the petitioner from the commission? No? Okay. Any other
No.
comments that you'd like to make? Thank
I'm
you
good.
again.
I'm good. Thank you.
And any questions or comments from the public? Okay, hearing none. I would entertain a motion to, well, before I go there, can we just run through well, we don't have to run through the open items, but can you pull them up on the screen real quick? For the commissioners, before we close the public hearing, is there anything in here that gives you pause where you feel we would not be able to get consensus tonight and have a vote on this? Nothing?
I have no concerns.
All right, good. Any concerns that are still holding us up? Okay. All right, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So move.
Move Commissioner Augustiniak, second.
Second.
Second Commissioner Manny, all in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are now closed. And so we could probably run through some of the standards that you have for us here.
Yeah, I don't have them on the PowerPoint, but I can kind of just summarize them for you guys. They're in the staff report, if everyone has that, and then I can just kind of do a quick summary, if that works. So the standards for a special use, one, the proposal creates safe traffic flow and more pedestrian opportunities. The proposal doesn't affect any adjacent properties within Brookside Marketplace and continues to add commercial opportunities that attract customers here. The site is an existing vacant bank development that's remained vacant for a number of years. This is kind of the adaptive reuse of the property that'll allow some other commercial uses and shouldn't affect any new or future improvements in the shopping center. Again, the site's existing, so Brookside Marketplace has kind of the existing utilities, roads, drainage facilities are all covered. The site layout was specifically, again, designed to accommodate safe vehicle traffic and pedestrian movement with the drive-through facility there. It also creates some additional parking, stacking opportunities on site. The proposal also conforms with all other regulations outside of the special use permit, outside of the standard deviation for the PUD that's with this. That is the standard for the special use. So it conforms with all other regulations except for these PUD standard substantial deviations. And then lastly, the redevelopments, again, just an adaptive reuse of a vacant bank. And this is expected to be a beneficial economic engine for Brookside Marketplace and the community as a whole. In terms of just kind of the standards for a site plan approval, the substantial deviation is the only other request that they're asking for, and otherwise it conforms with our codes. The architecture, landscaping, and overall improvements they're proposing to do improve this property in Brookside Marketplace. The site plan layout was designed, again, to accommodate safe vehicle and pedestrian movement on the site, and I believe we have a couple other suggestions that'll enhance that even further. The site has sufficient landscaping in the original 2006 plan, and then there's even additional landscaping and plantings that'll be added due to the changes they're proposing here. And then there's an existing brick trash enclosure that matches the current building that exists on the site that they'll be utilizing. So those are the standards for site plan approval.
Okay, great. So I think we're ready to entertain the motion on this. I would just like to clarify, at least from what I heard, it doesn't sound like the commissioners are looking to place any other conditions. Is that fair? Okay. So with that, we have a recommended motion on the screen. That's the same one that's from the staff report, right?
The only thing that changed was the part. So the second motion is a little bit different.
Okay.
But otherwise, this first one's the same.
So starting with the first one, would anybody like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to grant the petitioner Blake Bernal on behalf of C82 Commercial LLC site plan approval for the property located at 7228 West 191st Street in accordance with the plans submitted and listed herein, subject to the following conditions. 1. Any future outdoor dining shall receive a permit and approval prior to installation. 2. If the drive aisle is not utilized in the future, a new site plan approval is required prior to occupancy of the space or immediately upon the decommissioning of the drive-through operations. 3. Any changes in drive-through or parking demand from what was presented would require a new traffic or drive-through analysis and prior approval to ensure the on-site drive-through stacking and parking is sufficient.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion, has been moved and seconded. Are there any further comments, questions on this item? Hearing none, could we get a roll call vote, please?
Engel,
Yes.
Manny,
Yes.
Gatto,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Aitchison,
Yes.
Augustiniak,
Aye.
Vic,
Yes.
Chairman Shaw.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. All right. Next item would be motion number 2, and you said the recommended motion is the one on the screen, correct?
Correct.
All
Yeah,
right.
it just takes out the reduction of 3 parking spaces that was
Correct.
in your staff report.
All right, so once again, were there any, I don't believe that there were any additional conditions the commission was looking to place on this, is that correct? Okay, with that, entertain a motion on this item. Anybody like to
The
make a
screen
motion?
keeps going out, sorry.
All right,
I'll make a motion to recommend the village board grant special use permit to the petitioner, Blake Purnell, on behalf of CA2 Commercial LLC. My screen went out. For substantial, it keeps going.
If you read it from the staff report,
Okay.
the only part that you got to take out is the reduction of 3 parking spaces. If you just take that out.
Okay.
Screen's not making them look good over there. He can't
Okay,
read.
continue on for substantial deviation from the Brookside Marketplace planned unit development for building addition, facade changes, reduction, not that, and to allow a third drive-through restaurant on the property located at 7228 West 191st Street within the B3 General Business and Commercial Zoning District in accordance with the plan submitted and listed herein, and adopt findings of facts submitted as proposed by village staff and as may be amended by the Plan Commission at this meeting, subject to the following conditions. 1, if the drive aisle is not utilized in the future, a new site plan approval is required prior to occupancy of the space or immediately upon the decommissioning of the drive-through operations. 2, any changes in drive-through parking demand from what was presented would require new traffic/drive-through analysis and prior approval to ensure the on-site drive-through stacking and parking is sufficient.
Second.
So, it has been moved and seconded by Commissioner Gatto. Any questions or comments on this item here? Hearing none, could we get a roll call vote, please?
Vic,
Yes.
Augustiniak,
Aye.
Aitchison,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Gatto,
Yes.
Manny,
Yes.
Engel,
Yes.
Chairman Shaw.
Aye. Once again, motion carries unanimously. I think that concludes this item here. Once again, I want to say thank you for your patience in working through this, and also for staff and everyone else who worked to work through the traffic flow. I think that was a really great plan we came back with. So do we have, given that it was, both motions were unanimous, do we have a date that we think it'll go to the village board?
January 15th.
January-
We'll be there for adoption.
January 15th, and because it was unanimous at the Plan Commission, it'll be eligible for adoption. So, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We can move on to our next item on the agenda, which is not the wings. Let's see, where's our agenda here? Okay, we have another workshop/public hearing. This is for a fire station, number 47. It's 7825 West 167th Street, Village of Tinley Park, on behalf of the fire department. A special use permit to permit a fire station in the R4 zoning district and variations to construct a one-story fire station at 7825 West 167th Street. We're not going to do a separate workshop, right? We're going straight into the...
No, the request is, if everyone's okay, we'd like to do the public hearing due to the simplicity of the site and also timing for the project.
Yep.
So if it's okay, we could open the public hearing and...
So I'm in agreement on that. Again, I don't want to speak for the rest of the commission. Any objections to handling it that way? Okay, and just to emphasize the point, if we get through the public hearing and there are concerns or there are questions and we're not comfortable moving forward, we can always continue the public hearing until those get worked out. So I think that's an efficient route for us to go. So with that, I'd entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Move Commissioner Augustiniak, second Commissioner Gray. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, public hearing is open. And who do we have who is going to speak on behalf of the petitioner? You think both of you are probably going to speak? Okay, so just raise your hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to give this evening is the truth? All right, thank you. Is there anyone from the public who would expect to speak on this evening? Hearing none, we will. Where's my notices? I did look at this earlier and confirm some dates, and it was properly noticed. Thank you. So we will move right along to the staff presentation of this item.
All right, so exciting news. We are looking at a new station. This was formerly called Station Number 2, but recently it was changed to now Station 47. So all of our stations have been renumbered from 1, 2, 3, 4 to this series of numbers. So this is what we have here as the proposed front elevation facing 167th Street for the new fire station. You'll see that prominent number 47 is there above the entryway, and the nice red doors for the fire engines to exit out. The existing site is within a subdivision known as Brementown Estates, which was annexed and subdivided sometime in the mid-70s. And these parcels that the fire station has accompanied were kind of subdivided as residential lots, so which adds to some of the site constraints that we're dealing with. But around mid-1974 is when this station was constructed. And at that time, our zoning code actually permitted fire stations as a permitted use in the R4. But a couple years later, zoning code got amended, and now fire stations are a special use in the R4 district. Hence, one of their requests is just to bring that zoning into compliance. But the top picture is just showing how it relates within the Brementown Estates subdivision. To the north, east, and west, you have all residential, and then to the south, you have a large Centennial Park. And Parliament Avenue, the road that is on the west side of the building, is predominantly a driveway into that large parking lot. But the village does own the Centennial Park property, and we control it with a agreement with the Park District to maintain any of their apparatuses, and if they want to construct anything on it, they need to do it with our permission. So this is just kind of a bird's eye view of what it looks like today. You can see there is ample room, to the east of the property. I'm assuming it was anticipation that one day they would need to grow, and that's what we're here to review that plan. Here's the site plan. The biggest change you'll see is that the footprint is being expanded. It's approximately around 4,200 square feet now. It's a one-story building. It will remain a one-story building, but it'll be about 10,000 square feet in size. The current parking lot that's on the west side of the building along Parliament Avenue is going to be relocated to the east side, where parking will be servicing the individuals that will be working in and out of this location. There won't be any emergency vehicles utilizing that. The emergency vehicles will predominantly be coming off of 167th Street, but also the ability to use Parliament Avenue to enter into the rear of the station doors, so they are prepped and ready to go out 167th Street when they need to. Other than that, what they're working with is a landscaping berm is now being proposed in between that parking lot and the residential home to the east. Initially, it was going to be a wet bottom detention pond, but due to some MWRD requirements, we discovered that we have to provide more stormwater, and that's what you'll see in the bottom right corner. There's a large wet bottom pond that will be provided to comply with MWRD's requirements. And that's because we own both this site and the park district, the large park area, which is in our ownership, is kind of triggering that requirement. But they thought a berm might be a positive way to further screen this now home to the east that's going to be kind of impacted slightly with having a parking lot there. But a berm is one solution. In addition, they're going to be placing a 6-foot privacy fence along the property line. There's been some communication with Chief Reeder and that owner as well, so they're in knowledge of what's going on, and it seems like it's been pretty amicable, and they're pretty excited to see the improvements.
And just for clarification, they were noticed. Right,
yes.
For the public hearing.
Yep. So we have 3 access points into the site. The new parking lot off 167th Street, the main emergency vehicle exit off to 167th Street, and then the entrance off of Parliament Avenue, which is really only predominantly for the vehicle trucks to come in through the back way. You'll see that these aprons are fairly large. We regulate these only by allowing 30-foot maximum curb cuts, but the nature of fire trucks, they have large turning radiuses, they're large vehicles, that you will see these aprons are fairly large. But it's part of their variation requests, and it's mostly being required because of the nature of the vehicles coming in and out of the site. There is an opportunity with the parking lot, though, that can be reduced down slightly. It was originally larger, being 40-foot wide, because at one point there was discussions about having a temporary building here while this new building was being demolished and constructed. So they needed that for the emergency vehicles to come in and out, but we might not need that anymore. So there's an opportunity to reduce that curb cut. There's going to be some variations, as you'll see in your packet, with the expansion of the building. They are having a corner setback being not met along Parliament Avenue, and then the front yard setback with the parking lot is just not meeting the 25-foot requirements. But we can go through that more in the variation section. But this is the overall site plan. They're trying to utilize the property that they have available to them to improve the facility. So one of the open items I just kind of highlighted on is this ability to reduce the parking lot apron, which we do think we have some capabilities of doing that, which would eliminate that variation. I did note that you'll notice on the site plan there appears to be a residential shed encroaching on the village's property. I'm just acknowledging it. We don't have to take necessarily action right away, but we should just make some kind of coordination within the future. That maybe that gets relocated and off of the village's property. It's not a deal breaker, but it's just something I'm acknowledging. And then
where's that located?
Oh, I'm sorry.
To the east, is that?
Yeah, I can't hide. Yeah, so you'll see there's like 2 squares just to the right of the parking lot, south. Maybe I can highlight it to you, southeast. Yeah, there's 2 square sheds there, and that are encroaching.
Oh, the smaller one is a shed also?
Yeah, there's 2 sheds. The one that's the closest to the, I wish I had a pointer. Oh, yeah, that's right. I think if it next to it, John can, so there's that shed, but the shed to the left, John, that's the other one that's clearly on our property.
So they're both encroaching. One is completely on village property. Interesting. Okay.
And again, that it could have been put up, and it was never done. So we're not trying to penalize that individual. I think the person who owns this house is actually a newer owner, so I'm not trying to penalize them in any way. It's just something I'm acknowledging, and we can maybe work out in the future, or if the property ever sells in the future, we make sure that that gets removed.
If I may speak on this.
Yeah.
Obviously budgetary conscientious here. If we have the ability to, discussion with the property owner, maybe, undertaking with the construction of the station to actually pay to move that shed along with it again, if the budget allows.
Yeah, depending on what kind of slab it's on, or what I'm sure you can have some front end loaders and just pick it up and move it. So that's fair.
So that's a quick summary of the site plan. I do have Chief Reader here, obviously, and John can speak more to the specifics of the use of the floor plan, any other specifics. But one item that is being discussed is, because we have this relationship with the Park District and their property there, they need an area to have some open storage where they can place their mulch and other materials used to maintain the park. This is still being discussed. We feel that these 2 alternative locations, I think, are kind of what we're going to pursue. Initially, it was going to be behind the fire station, and they would have utilized that driveway off of Parliament Avenue, but there was some concerns raised about the ability to keep that driveway clear of debris. Mulch can get messy. So this is still going to be ironed out, but the goal is to keep it screened from the residents, obviously from the public view, and keep it maintained. But we think these might be good locations to, being good partners with the Park District. They need space to have their mulch. So they can maintain the park. If there's any questions on that. Here's the landscape plan, a little more clear for you. Again, it's not a final landscape plan, but we can work through the final species and get the berm landscaped more. They are asking for some waivers from our landscaping ordinance, and that's mostly being dictated by the use. Again, our fire trucks sit up at a much higher height than a regular vehicle, so the amount of parkway trees that are required on 167th Street, they're asking to have a slight reduction, just so as these trucks come out, they have no, trees blocking their view along 167th Street, which is a busier street. Parliament Avenue, there's not ability to have as much landscaping due to the limited parkway area, but we have a large park behind us. It's not a really busy street, so again, the nature of this site is dictating some of these requests because it's unique. It's in a residential area, but it's a commercial use. But overall, I think they're making a great attempt to landscape the perimeter of the building, the foundation plantings, the parking lot. It's going to look really attractive, especially the new building itself. Architecturally, it will look really good. But that's just one open item. We can work through a final landscape plan. That is something we can easily work through with our team. Here's the floor plan. I'm not going to really go into much details, but the benefit of adding this new building is they're going to get additional rooms that will allow for more personnel, and that's the goal. This will provide a better service for the area. There's a need to have it. It's just going to be an updated, state-of-the-art facility that our fire crews need. So it has all the basic stuff that they need, nothing outside of the ordinary. There is a large basement area too that maybe in the future there's talks about it being occupied for community things, but for now it's simply for the use of the fire station and Public Works maybe, but it'll be for storage. But you'll have your kitchen, you'll have your main kind of living room space, your I want to say bunk rooms, but you call them bunk rooms, and nothing more than that. So if you have questions on the floor plan, I think the chief can definitely add more to it if I'm not doing service to the plan, but I know we're not trying to get into the details of that. That's a little beyond our scope, but this is the architecture. I think it's going to have a little bit more residential feel with the peaks of the roof, predominantly brick. It's going to have stone accents on the base. Looks like a pretty attractive building. They really are using a lot of quality materials. The windows in the rear will be floor to ceiling, which is going to be the area that goes into the kitchen and the living room. They'll have a patio area on the rear also that will be screened by a wall, I think is proposed. So that gives the opportunity for them to have that. So there's that bottom picture is where I'm telling you there's that patio area proposed where they have a wall that's kind of screened in. Zoning, again, this is nestled in an R4 zoning district, and it's residential, and you have some R6, which is also single family, but some multifamily, and then you have the large park to the south. The special use is being triggered by a code change that happened in the late 70s after the building was constructed, requiring a special use for fire stations. So this is an attempt just to bring that into compliance. And then there are several variations. I'm not going to go over everyone in detail, but the majority there are a few setback variations with the expansion of the building, that one being the corner side yard setback along Parliament Avenue. They have two front yards, which requires 25 feet on both sides. So on Parliament Avenue, they're going to go about where they have a 2-foot setback from the property line. And then the parking lot, the new parking lot will not be meeting that 25-foot setback as well. We're asking some variations for the driveway aprons. As I mentioned, there's a maximum of a 30-foot curb cut, but with the nature of this station and the fire trucks, they need to have wider curb cuts on those right-of-way access points. So those are the variations for those 3 access points to exceed 30 feet. There's some landscaping waivers, as I'd mentioned. The parkway trees are not able to meet all of the parkway tree requirements. And I think that was, and just, yeah, there's some landscaping within the parking lot. They're not meeting the full minimum 50% of the lot to be required landscaping. It's a tight site. They're trying to get the parking that they need to accommodate the number of personnel that'll be coming in and out of this site, and to add landscape islands and additional landscaping. They're choosing to focus their landscaping around the perimeter of the property, and the parking lot is not kind of going to be having as much of that. So that's also a waiver. I'm going over this quickly, but I understand everyone is getting a little tired. So if I miss anything, let me know, but it's all there in your report. So briefly, open items. There's an opportunity that I think we can still work through that one parking lot apron where we can reduce it down to meet the 30 feet. Keep coordination possibly with that neighbor to the east about the shed that's on our property. We need to continue further discussion with the Park District on the final location of the storage bin, with the ultimate goal of it being screened from the residential properties and the right-of-way and being maintained. We can work through a final landscaping plan to get the final species and everything that needs to be added to the landscaping berm as that gets final designed, and the wet bottom detention, because that's now getting finally designed as we've worked through some of that with our engineers. A photometric plan. They didn't have a final photometric plan, but there are parking lot lights proposed within the parking lot. We want to be sensitive to the resident to the east, so we want to make sure we have proper shields, especially in any of those lights that would be adjacent to that neighbor, and then also a photometric plan demonstrating they're not exceeding any of our lighting requirements. And for your discussion is just the, discussion of the special use permit, and then the discussion of the variations. Because we're doing a workshop combo, that's why it's an open item.
Okay.
And I have motions, but again, if you have any specific questions on the use and everything, I've got Chief Reader here and our Assistant Public Works Director, John Obransky, who he really knows the construction of everything and some of the constraints with the site. There's a lot of utilities running in and around there that also have limited our ability to shift the building more forward or back. There's a large transformer, and there's is it a ComEd or is it a AT?
Yes.
There's a big ComEd easement that runs behind the property now that we can't really do much more with the building footprint.
Okay. Is this still subdivided as multiple parcels right now, or is it a single parcel?
There are separate pins and parcels. We're not consolidating, and it's not necessary for us, but it is comprised of multiple parcels.
And so that easement you're talking about, like, if it were one parcel, it would go through the middle of it, right?
Not through the middle of it. It runs through the rear of it.
It's actually spelled out, you could see by the dashed line.
Yeah.
Yeah, right here, that whole...
That shows your easement line.
Okay.
So that's why the parking lot can't be shifted further to meet the setback.
Yeah.
They do have a combined generator and trash enclosure as well in this corner here that will be with a similar brick with the building. This T here is a transformer that has to be there.
Okay. Sounds good. So I appreciate the staff report, and Chief Reader and John, is there, did you have more you wanted to add on that before we go to the commissioners? Or?
No, I don't think so. Just available for any questions you might have, and we're looking forward to getting the project up and going as quickly as we can. Our target for occupancy is April of next year. So
okay.
Our timeline that we're looking towards right now.
April of 2020. I had to stop for a second. I was like, 2019, holy. No, that's good. That's quick. Okay, so we can start down at this end this time. Commissioner Gray, any comments or questions?
Sure, I just need a clarification. I'm sure you guys can answer. So is that pond supposed to be wet bottom the whole time? Is the whole...
Part of the WMO that we're restricted to now, we have to have a wet bottom pond.
Okay.
For that, any site drainage for that.
Okay.
So That'll be essentially a smaller version of what we're seeing right now at the Freedom Pond on 175th, original what we just installed there.
Okay.
So we have wild grasslands and a very shallow wet bottom. So
Okay. How shallow? I mean, I know it said there was no specifics at this time.
Rough engineering, you're probably going to have 1 to 2 feet at most, other than obviously during a rainstorm.
Right, absolutely, yeah.
But
Okay.
again, it's just that it's what the WMO from WMRD requires us to have.
Okay. Another question I had was on that A1, sheet A1 landscape plan, they show like the concrete drive after your radius to the back where the trucks come in?
That one is actually pre-drawn. As you can see, that retention pond is not back there.
Right.
Understanding the chase we had, figuring out exactly who owned the property behind the station, there's a lot of misunderstanding of it being Park District property, MWRD property, and we had to do a title search back to 1974, I believe,
Okay.
to actually find out it was the Village of Tinley property, and we had agreements with not only MWRD, Army Corps of Engineers, and the Park District, and that's, again, that's where the misnomer of that being Park District property. So with that being said, now that we've combined not only where the fire station is, but the property behind there,
Sure.
all being village-owned property, we've exceeded the requirement of under 3/4 of an acre for development, which puts us into that new WMO, which requires that wet bottom drainage. So that drawing is pre-existent to the understanding of the requirement of the wet bottom retention. So that is the most updated drawing. We did not have the landscape drawing updated after that.
Okay, so yeah, fair enough. I don't have my screen working, so, okay, fair enough. And so the updated one shows...
Sorry for the...
No, it's fine. That's why I just needed clarification. So the updated one shows the storage, which is now going to be moved, which I concur with you guys and the staff report, where it's probably better to not have that debris in the way of the trucks and passage into the building.
And again, in its infancy, this drawing here actually shows a pad at the radius of the apron, and as Kimberly explained, that most recent discussions that both the Park District and the village agreed that would probably cause some differences with materials being stored that close to the driveway. We have returning apparatus, and also just with debris getting dragged into the apron. As we all know, the fire department likes to keep their stuff nice and tidy. I don't think they'd like to see a bunch of mold being dragged into the fresh concrete. So we are now holding conversations with the Park District on the 2 other locations that we showed in their parking lot further up Parliament there.
Okay. Thanks, John. I have no further questions at this time.
Commissioner Augustinian.
Just so I'm understanding the vehicle traffic flow, so that the apparatus would exit onto 167th.
Yes, sir.
Returning after their call, Parliament, loop around, and then just pull right into the base?
It's a drive-in, drive-out base.
Yeah, so
the apparatus doesn't have to be backing
Yeah,
down.
we don't have to back up on 167th
We had
Street.
a incident earlier this year when one of our engines was struck by a car trying to go out and around them when they were backing in the station. Several $1,000s in damage to the
Yeah,
apparatus and things like that.
it's a much better traffic
This is
flow.
a much better traffic flow and keeps our people safe and keeps the residents and the passersby in a safer condition too, so.
Yeah, that doesn't tie up traffic on 167th. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Aitchison?
None at this time.
Commissioner Bennett?
I really don't have anything besides, I think it's a great addition to that neighborhood. I live over that way. The drawings are really nice and nice design, and being a firefighter myself, it looks really good and the plans all look good, so.
Okay. Commissioner Manning?
There were no comments.
None.
Nope.
All right. So I just had a couple of quick questions. One of them is really has nothing to do with it. I'm just curious about the numbering system. It used to be Station 2, now it's 47.
Yes, we're part of Mavis Division 24, which is the mutual aid group that we operate out of, and there are 50 fire stations that operate out of that numbering group.
Okay.
And being the last in the alphabet, we ended up with the last 4 members in the series, and so we're 46, 7, 8, 9. Little asterisk for, maybe somewhere down the road, that station 50 occurs somewhere in our future down in the southwest corner of town, and we just kind of ended up at the bottom of the numbers there. So.
That's great. Makes perfect sense. So with respect to parking lot, I see in a staff report there's not really clear requirements on number of parking spaces. And so two questions kind of together because they're really related. You mentioned the basement, and I know other communities, specifically, I used to live out in Bolingbrook for years, and when we had a nice big fire station built, it was nice that there was accommodations for community meeting rooms, as well as, I honestly, I don't know where the polling, well, you live in the area, I don't know where the polling place is in that neighborhood for. A lot of times it's public buildings like a fire station. But given the size of it, the fire stations make good polling places. So on the one hand, I was thinking, well, it's a big parking lot. I don't know if you need all of those, but considering potential future uses, things of that nature, or even if the fire department has some sort of event, where you invite the public in, if we go too tight on the number of spaces, then suddenly the neighborhood's filling up and they're parking over here. So
I believe it's Kimberly did a great job of pointing out there. We have a minimum of 5 people that are staffed there, and we hope to grow that to potentially 8 or 9 people working a 2-shift rotation during the day. Potentially you could have 16 people coming and going at the same time during the course of the day, as well as the future of that basement opportunity if that's to be built out exactly that. So
okay, good.
Maximize the future there a little bit for us.
And the benefit of the location is if you did have a community event, you've got the parking lot for the park.
Yes.
It could technically easily be utilized.
Yep, good. Yeah, so all of that makes sense, and I struggled to find some good questions for you, but that's all I had. It looks good. I think it's well thought out, and clearly, especially with doing, title search to try and do your due diligence on it, it looks like a lot of the questions that might have been there have already been resolved. So, with that, we are technically still in a public hearing, and based on, so did any of the commissioners have additional questions or comments?
Yeah, I just, in terms of, I know you guys are located in a residential area. I pass by you every day, at least twice on the way to and from work. And my concern with the pond, and you mentioned there was a larger pond that's about 1 to 2 feet deep. It could be attracting, a kid that wants to play by the water or something. Is there any sort of safety? I know there's no specifics in terms of the side slopes or the depths at this time, but and I'm sure you guys are all well-staffed, and so you're pretty vigilant, and there's no lighting plan submitted, but is there any consideration to make sure that, the wrong people don't, get into the pond?
Not to dismiss your concerns for
Sure.
safety. Understand that about 150 feet away from here, you got that large structure that is constantly wet. That is, I think, the deepest 50 feet deep.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Our concerns to try to fence that in or anything of that, like I said, would be negated by the very large pond right to the south of that.
Fair enough. Okay.
More of an attractive nuisance as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Plus, you couldn't be any closer to, public safety personnel, first responders. So.
I'm with you on that.
But, it's a fair question. So are there any further comments from you guys on this based on any of the questions? Okay. Could you pull up the open items again real quick? Let's see. So we've got working on the parking lot, shed, storage, landscape plan, photometric. For me anyway, I don't see any of these open items that would give me cause for concern on having a recommendation this evening. Any of the other commissioners see anything here that would get in our way where we would want to continue the public hearing?
I don't see.
No.
No? Okay, good. All right. Do we have any members of the public who would like to speak? Okay, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Moved Commissioner Augustiniak, second Commissioner Beck. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, public hearing is now closed. I don't believe we need to go through the exhaustive list of the standards. Are there any targeted questions that any of the commissioners might have on the standards here or any of the responses to them? No?
No.
No.
Okay. So if there are no further comments or questions, I think we could pull up the recommended motions. Are they the same as what's in the staff report?
Yes, they are.
Right, because these screens are not very...
I'd like to make a motion to grant the petitioner Village of Tinley Park site plan approval, property located at 7825 West 167th Street in accordance with the plans submitted and listed herein subject to the following conditions. 1, investigate the ability to reduce the parking lot drive width off of 167th from 40 feet wide to 30 feet wide. 2, the village should coordinate with the owner of the shed that is on the village property and create a plan to have it removed in the near future or part of this project. 3, further discuss the location of the open storage area to be used by the Park District. 4, a final landscape plan should be submitted for staff to review, which identifies the species and includes landscaping on the proposed berm and wet retention pond. And 5, formal photometric plan will need to be submitted to ensure conformance with the village lighting standards.
Motion Commissioner Gatto, second.
Second.
Second Commissioner Engel. Any comments or questions on this motion? Hearing none, ask for a roll call vote.
Vic,
Yes.
Augustiniak,
Aye.
Aitchison,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Gatto,
Yes.
Manny,
Yes.
Engel,
Yes.
Chairman Shaw.
Aye. Motion carries. We have 2 more, so second motion here.
I'd like to
Anybody
make a
like
motion to recommend that the village board grant a special use permit to petitioner, Village of Tinley Park, the following special use permit at the property located at 7825 West 167th Street in accordance with the plan submitted and listed herein, adopt the findings of fact submitted by the applicant and as proposed by village staff, and as may be amended by the Planning Commission at this meeting. 1, a special use permit from section V.B. of the zoning code to permit a fire station in the R4 zoning district, subject to the following conditions. A final landscape plan should be submitted for staff to review, which identifies the species, includes landscaping on the proposed berm and wet retention pond. B, a formal photometric plan will need to be submitted to ensure conformance with the village's lighting standards.
Move Commissioner Engel, second.
Second.
Commissioner Augustiniak. Any questions or comments on this motion? Hearing none, call for a roll call vote, please.
Manny,
Yes.
Gatto,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Aitchison,
Yes.
Augustiniak,
Aye.
Vic,
Yes.
Engel,
Yes.
Chairman Shaw.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. All right, so we have a third proposed motion here.
I don't know if you need to read every variation, but
I'm sorry, say that again?
I don't know if you need to read every single variation. It's up to you guys.
You can just reference the
Yeah.
staff report.
So, do we have someone who would like to read the motion? And if so, do you understand you don't have to read 1 through 6 in great detail? You could just reference the report?
I'll go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend that the village board grant variations to the petitioner the Village of Tinley Park at the property located at 7825 West 167th Street in accordance with the plans submitted and listed herein, and adopt the findings of facts submitted by the applicant and as proposed by village staff, and as may be amended by the Plan Commission at this meeting. I will go along with the variations as submitted in the staff report.
Okay, move Commissioner Augustiniak. Do I have a
Second.
second? Second, Commissioner Gatto. Any questions or comments on this motion? No. Hearing none. Roll call vote, please.
Engel,
Yes.
Manny,
Yes.
Gatto,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Aitchison,
Yes.
Vic,
Yes.
Augustiniak,
Aye.
Chairman Shaw.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously as well. So 3 for 3 on that. Thank you very much. Do we have a, would this be going to the board on the 15th as well? Yes. Okay. So it would also be going to the village board and eligible for adoption, I believe. Is that accurate? All right. Sounds great. Thanks, guys.
Just one last comment, Chairman. Just part of our plan as this continues to roll out is after we finish the meeting on the 15th, or as quickly right after that, we're going to have an open house over at the existing station. The architects will have some mock-ups of the building layout, some of the internal design features and things like that, and we're going to invite the neighbors and everybody over off 167th Street over there to kind of see the new and upcoming jewel of the neighborhood that we think we're going to have, and do is a little bit of an informational session once we move a little bit further into the design process, and that hopefully will take place sometime in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So.
That's great. I'm sure that'll be pretty exciting for the neighborhood there. I know you mentioned April 2020 is your target completion date. I didn't catch when if everything goes well, when do you think you would break ground?
It looks like demolition right now for this is set for the first week of April, that the existing station would be vacated and the demolition will begin. So
Great. So approximately 12 months?
Yes.
Start to finish?
Construction time about 10 months and 2 months for the demolition and site preparation.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. Thank you again. Getting back to our agenda, we have good of the order.
Sure, just 2 brief things for you guys because they're going to be coming your way. At the January 8th Community Development Committee meeting, we're reviewing small cells, which I know for some of you this was actually reviewed in the past, but then got delayed. So Dan will be bringing a new potentially text amendment forward to the Plan Commission after the Community Development Committee's reviewed it, which will incorporate the small cells that are coming our way. And then also at the Community Development Committee meeting on the 8th, we'll be talking about short-term rentals. And I've been tasked with providing a license program for this, but also we have to do an amendment to our zoning code, and we need to talk about the land uses and stuff like that. So licensing and land use text amendments will then go together to the village board for final approval. But I'm getting some direction from the Community Development Committee next week, and then I'll be coming to you guys for the zoning.
Okay. Are you anticipating that we're going to be workshopping that, or do you think it's going to be?
Text amendments, we always will do a workshop and a formal public hearing. There's no huge rush, but we will follow it. And I think it'll be a nice, thorough conversation that we'll need to have.
Excellent. Anything else? All right. So next item is comments from the public. Seeing none, hearing none. Last thing here, just to throw out to the commission. Do we have any comments from any of the commissioners tonight? I know most, maybe even all of us were at the village board meeting tonight. That was interesting. And so once again, I appreciate everyone being here this evening and staying late. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting. So moved. And Commissioner Augustiniak, second.
Second.
Commissioner Engel, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.